This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Norman Basile. He is a paranormal investigator and he has also had other encounters with just regular dangers that are normal. How are you today, Norman?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. So first of all, let's uh you one of your books is it The Devil is Knocking? Is
The
that the one?
Devil's Knock, yeah, The Devil's Knocking, which came out it came out in December of 23. And we're actually, it's still in its early stages.
Uh-huh.
So we're trying to move along with it and, do a lot of different things. And we're hoping a lot of good things in the future with it, things like that. So we're trying to get a lot of different things done with it. Um,
Uh,
and go ahead. It took us a very long time to write. So
you you had some issues before, about you said that there was a lot of darkness that you had to overcome because that was you felt that you were in some sort of danger, that there was this other side that was trying to control you, but then you overcame that. But is this the source of your writing?
well, the source of the writing came, of course, with my own very much experiences in life, and it pretty much started from birth. I mean, from the very beginning of me being born, I was born in Little Company of Mary, which is actually a haunted hospital in Chicago. So I was actually born into ghost hunting and things of that nature out there. I was born on a stormy night in September, and which, of course, added to the mystique of the whole thing. And then, of course, being born in a haunted hospital was also, added to the mystique of the book itself. But yes, I would say from the very beginning, something always was, chasing me down. You could call it a dark aura. You could call it a spirit. You could call it whatever. But throughout my whole life, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences. And even to this day, things are still continuing with the book. But that's how the book actually, I decided to start the book. And even the book had many challenges, even from the very beginning. So, you know, it just took a long time to get put together. And that's pretty much really, I mean, I've had a lot of challenges as far as writers and things of that nature. I mean, I per se have worked with several different writers. A few of them did not work out. I had one writer that died. I, of course, eventually ended up writing my book with my stepdaughter, and she's a very good writer. And we decided to start working together on the book, which was a little presumptuous because she was afraid that it was going to interfere with our relationship. And then, of course, I'm a very anal person, so I like perfection in the book. And it took us a very long time, 4 years almost, quite 5 years to write the book itself. Writing itself is not easy. Okay. I know there's a lot of books and a lot of writers out there, but I don't know if any one of them could tell you the same thing that I have, but there are challenges while you are writing a book. So
Well, I do want to ask you a question about the St. Mary Hospital, St. Mary Nazareth Hospital, did you say?
I was born at Little Company of Mary,
Little,
which is out in Evergreen Park. Yeah, I was born back in 1961.
little company.
So anyways, it was a haunted hospital.
In what way
Um,
was it? In what way was it haunted?
they had experiences up on some of the floors with, like for instance, there was one room that was particularly haunted by an old lady. I think she had passed away in one of the rooms, and that when people used to come into this particular room, they would see her sitting up in the bed, and then she would disappear. This was one of the hauntings that was going on there, not per se in the maternity ward itself, but it was haunted.
Was
So, I
uh,
mean,
so no hauntings in the maternity ward?
no hauntings in the maternity ward per se. Now you have to also understand that even though the Devil's Knocking is it's not really a biography, it's a biographical novel. So we did take some liberties with it. Not really too many. I'll be honest with you, the stories themselves are all true in there. They're just it's written in a novel so people get a better experience while they're reading the book. I wanted to make it a little more exciting. And even in biographical novels, even in biographies, people do the same thing. They kind of build their stories up. But as far as Little Company Mary being haunted, yes, there was, it was haunted, and so we started from there.
Hmm. Were there any child ghosts or ghosts of babies?
Not that I know of from Little Company of Mary. I didn't hear too many of that. I'm not surprised if there wouldn't be, but as far as me having a story, as far as anything connected to babies in the maternity ward, or any babies being deceased there or walking around at that particular time, no. But again, it was haunted, so I was born into the craft, so to say.
Mhm. Do you have any idea what kind of dark force was following you? How that the dark force attached itself to you that you said that you were trying to overcome?
Well, when you say dark force, you're not exactly sure what it is. Is it was I born into this? Was this from actually a previous life? Did something attach itself to me? Was it always there? With the book itself, we kind of made it a love tale as well. It's a paranormal thriller, but it's a love tale. And what we did was combine that. I mean, a lot of that also has to do with my wife, my wife, and us actually possibly knowing each other in a previous life and things of that nature. But something's always been chasing me. I've had numerous, amounts of identifying experiences within a lot of my professions and things of this nature. Whether or not that is connected to this dark or not, I really can't say. But it is quite interesting that I have survived all of these things, and it seems to me like something is chasing me. I've always had these dreams of people chasing me, and things of this nature. So we kind of made it into a story to whereas people can enjoy it. It's a little more exciting. You've got to put a little bit of oomph into your books when you do this in order to capture your readers. Although, like I said before, this book itself has a lot of great stories in it, and we didn't have to improvise too much.
You said that there might have you had some dreams of something chasing you. I heard that there's a that's a common theme in dreams, but however, it seems as if you encounter a lot of dangerous situations in your professions as a maybe bouncer, bounty hunter, and all those other jobs that you had, but it seems as if you almost got shot. You almost got killed. You missed getting a bullet to your head. It seems
Oh,
that
yes. I mean, the bullet that I had actually is an experience that I had when I was a child.
oh
Um, this was back in the days when we were living in Chicago, and I'll give you a quick emphasis of the whole story here. What it was is that my parents had gone out for the night, and they had hired a babysitter, which of course was the next door neighbor. Um, the gentleman was a teenager at the time, and me and my sister were very young. I can't exactly remember our ages at that particular time, but my dad had kept a loaded pistol in his drawer, which Probably shouldn't have been, but was, not thinking that anybody would actually go in there. But somehow the teenage babysitter found the pistol. Me and my sister were in the room. I remember the experience where I was up against, sort of like up against the wall or the door, and he had been playing with the pistol itself, and it had gone off. And whether or not he had pulled the trigger or it had gone off by itself, which I'm not really quite sure, but it did skim the top of my head. It just went over the top of my head. You could see the actual bullet hole in the height, and it skimmed off the top and went into the wall behind us. Needless to say, he was never ever going to babysit again. Yeah, that's how I almost got the bullet to the head on that particular one. Now, we made the story a little bit more exciting and things of that nature. But yeah, I did survive that. I mean, it was a very close call. I mean, I would say centimeters more, and I wouldn't be talking to you today.
Exactly. It seems as if there were a dark force attaching itself to you, it seemed that there was also a force that was saving you from all these different dangerous situations that you encountered. Could you tell us other situations in which you seem you escaped?
Oh, well, of course. Also in the book, we also had a couple of my other experiences were actually, one day I was coming home from school at a very young age. We were going to a school in Roseland, Illinois. It was called St. Anthony's. And me and my sister were walking home. And we were walking on one side of the street from what I can remember, and was near a police station. The police station was nearby. And my sister had almost grabbed me. From what I remember, I was walking to the street. She tried to reach for me, grab me, because there was a car coming. Now, the car itself did hit me. And when it hit me, it flew me probably about 50 feet on my face. So I skidded on my face along the street and underneath another car. The gentleman that was in the car was an actual police officer coming out that time. And then he had, what he had done actually is he had picked me up. He had pulled me out from underneath the car, which he probably should have done. But back in the 60s, nobody understood, certain things like that. So picked me up, took me to the hospital, got me to the hospital. From there, I don't remember too much, but I know the gentleman knew the family. I was very worried about hitting someone from my family, and I survived it. And actually, I was out of school for most of the year after that. I mean, I did have to stay home. And from what I remember, the class came by to see me and things like that nature. But I did actually survive that too. And you do mention the fact that something of nature's, like an angel on my shoulder or something, was protecting me. And we do have that in the book as well. I mean, I truly believe that people have a certain amount of luck, and that luck either can actually run out eventually, and or it can continue depending on how much you're actually given. I believe everybody has a certain amount of luck, whether it be a little or a lot. It depends, So whether it's an angel on your shoulder or it's just pure unadulterated luck, because I've been asked about it, how did you survive this? How did you survive this? Well, I did survive a lot, so you can actually almost say, and more than normal people do. Normal people don't get hit by cars, fall off roofs, almost kidnapped, run over by trains, things of that nature. I don't know. I experienced quite a bit in my time, and actually survived a lot. So
The driver
I think, go ahead.
the driver that took you to the hospital, that was the car that you slid under, that driver?
No, I slid under a parked car.
Oh, okay.
The police officer is the one who hit me. He was coming out of the police station and going down the street, and I had stepped into the street at that particular time. My sister reached for me, but it was like he hit me, and then I slid along the pavement underneath a parked car. So he actually grabbed my feet, from what I understand, and pulled me out, and then took me to the hospital, which wasn't actually too far away at that particular time. But after that, I remember that I was home for most of the year. After that, half my face was peeled off from the asphalt and the pavement. So, but like I said, that's one of many things that I did survive, as far as my book goes. So,
Have you done research? Do you have a higher propensity of these dangerous situations than the average person?
well, you gotta understand, being very active as a child and things of that nature. I guess I actually sometimes didn't think about it, but I guess I put myself in certain situations. I mean, like for instance, let's say jumping from rooftops. Well, I jumped from rooftops because, I mean, every boy or every little boy at one time wants to be something, fireman, police officer, this, that. Well, I always wanted to be Batman. So my mom would, back then, would tie a little towel around me and around my neck. And she thought I was going out to play. Well, my parents had owned a 2-story building at that particular time, and it was empty upstairs at this time. So I decided that, heck, I'm going to jump off top of the roof, which is probably 25, 50 feet below, at least. And what I did is I went up to the upstairs apartment, which she didn't know I did, and I crawled outside the window on top of the roof and jumped from the edge of the roof into the gangway below. Now, from what I understand, I did it a few times. A couple of times I landed perfectly. How that was, I don't know. But 2 to 3 other times I kept doing it for some reason, and I landed on my head and I had many stitches. Surviving it, I mean, if you'd seen the house, it was at least over 25 feet high. How I even landed or didn't kill myself, I don't know.
And you
Because
landed on pavement, right? Or
I
on brick?
landed on pavement below, yeah, and it was a gangway too. Back in, I mean, if you go out to some of the old neighborhoods in Chicago, they had gangways, which were very narrow. I mean, it's not like the homes of today. Very narrow. You were lucky that, one person could actually walk through them at that particular time. So,
So when you jumped, did you know how to fall? Did you roll so that the impact would be less, or did you learn that yet?
well, you know, at a later time in my life, yeah, I know how to roll and fall. But at that particular time, when I was a child, no, I did not know how to roll or fall. It was like, I'm gonna jump. and and from there, I mean, there was a couple of times I guess I did it and I made it. And there was, several times I didn't. My parents had to take me to the hospital for many stitches. I got a lot of scars from doing a lot of stupid things in my life, but I did survive it. And that was just one of many stories we added to the book, and in sort of different ways, we added it in there, and that's just one of them.
How did you get involved in, after all this, how did you get involved into the paranormal and ghost hunting?
Well, I'd always been interested in the ghosts and paranormal. I mean, from an early stage on, I mean, I saw ghosts. I saw ghosts in my grandmother's house. I mean, one night there was a ghost. I was sleeping, it was in Ohio, for instance, and I was sleeping in the top bunk. And I thought it was my uncle who had gotten up, but he hadn't. When I looked below, he was still there. I called out to him and I saw this figure walking towards me. And I actually jumped off the bed and I ran through it. I would say that was one of my very first experiences with ghosts and the paranormal. Another time was when my aunt was actually recording music on her recorder, and she heard my grandfather's voice on there, and he said something about how easy it was to die and he was okay. I think with those type of experiences, I was always interested in it, and I got involved with the paranormal. Now, many people, can get involved in many different ways. I'm a very anal person. I am a person who will take things to the extreme. And what I mean by that is that in being a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator, there are several things that you can do. You can actually go out there, just take pictures with a camera, or you could do it the way I did it. And the way I did it was I studied. I went to classes, and I mean classes like psychic awareness classes, classes on photography. Um, I even met up with different psychics, different paranormal groups, things of this nature. I read up on every type of ghost there was possibly out there. Um, you know, I even took classes in exorcisms um, and things of this nature. So um, I think it was just an interest in me from earlier experiences. And I got interested in it, and I just went on from there.
How much interaction did you want to have with the entities that you found or encountered?
How much interaction? Well, a lot of times in between, because I used to investigate cases. So in between cases, I would travel the country and investigate other types of hauntings, within burial grounds and things of this nature. Um, I wouldn't say per se that I've interacted or I've talked with them. I do seances, by the way. I mean, but I don't know if you can talk to the spirits, and you can, and they may answer sometimes. I mean, you have electronic voice phenomena, which I mean sometimes comes in little spurts of words and things of this nature. But I mean, interacting with them, you can talk to them. Whether or not they're going to come back with full sentences or things of this nature, I've you know I've never really experienced quite that. I have heard noises, I have heard voices, things like that, but I've never really particularly sat down with a spirit at a table and talked with them. I don't think that's physically possible. I mean, although there are some ghosts in Chicago that have been picked up, hitchhiking ghosts have been picked up, and they've had short conversations with people. But that would take a great amount of energy for them to appear to you and something like that.
In that incident on the bunk bed, was that entity that walked in? Was he transparent, and did he seem like on a mission to come and gaze at you or gaze at your uncle?
Well, what this entity was doing actually, or ghost per se, was coming towards the bed for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe he slept in that particular room. Maybe that was a room where he spent a lot of time in. I mean, ghosts are territorial too. A lot of times they can't move from one spot to the next. Okay, so most of the time they will be in a house or an area where perhaps they experienced their death, or they spent a lot of time at. So whether or not this thing was staring at me, it was more or less a shadowy figure, transparent in a way. I remember it was kind of grayish black. And when I did jump off the top bunk, I jumped off, being a young kid, landed on the ground, ran through it, ran into my mom's room. I learned a lot later that my grandmother told me that other things had happened in the house. Like she said that one time there was a hat floating down the hallway, and they experienced all kinds of other things at her house. Now they lived in Ohio. We were from Chicago, and we used to go visit her. And I think that was my one experience at that particular house.
Did you
So
say a hat? Your grandmother said that there was a hat that was
yeah,
floating down.
she said there was a particular hat that floated out of a door and down the hallway. Now I didn't particularly see this. These were stories from her. Okay. Now that particular grandmother, I'll be honest with you, I had a dream about after her passing. And you see, this is another funny thing. After somebody passes, I actually see them. Um, I don't talk to them, but I can see them. I don't know if they're communicating with me or in a way, but I don't see them like when I'm awake. A lot of times I'll dream about them. I did see my grandmother um, from that house. She had passed away, I would say, several years ago, and I saw her, and she was sitting in the back of a car, and she had, she was an older woman, but she was back, she was born back like in the 20s or something of that nature, and she had her beehive hair up, and she was sitting in the back of the car like she was going someplace. Okay. And it was really quite strange because she was back in sitting back in a 1950s style like car. So, and to interpret that, I'll be honest with you, I think that her sitting in the back of the car was her passing on to the next realm. But I saw this, and she never said anything to me. She was just sitting there, and she just kind of moved on.
Was her face facing you, or did you see her?
No, it was more or less from the back. So I saw the back of the car. I saw her through the window, and then I saw her hair, and she was sitting in the car, and the car was running. So I think for some reason, and this may sound kind of strange, but I think that car was taking her to the next realm. And it was probably familiarize us with something that people are familiarized with, like a car or an old train. In this particular case, it was an old car from her era. If everybody can kind of understand that. So, I mean, it was something that I would have recognized, So, and I never really saw her much after that. I did see one of my father's father a lot. My father passed away recently. I've seen him in my dreams quite a bit, and a few other uncles and things of that nature. But it seems right after that, I seem to see these people for a while, and then of course they seem to disappear.
Are these people that you see, or the ghosts that you see, are they always dressed? Are there any that do not have clothes on?
No, well, no, I don't think I've ever seen a naked ghost before, but that would be interesting. No, they were always dressed. I can't say what they were dressed in. Like I said, I did see my grandmother. I saw the back of her hair, and it did look like it was something from her era. But most of the time, I just see them. You know, um, had a few conversations with them. I can't exactly remember, but recently I've had a couple other people pass away, and I've seen them in my dreams and things of that nature. And why do they come to me? I don't know. Sometimes it's quite disturbing. I mean, you're like, why are they coming to me? What do they want to tell me? It's not always clear. You know, um, in the case of my father, I always had, me and my father were a little bit estranged. I saw him at the end of his period. He had a lot of problems towards the end. And I don't know if that's something, his way of trying to make up with me and me making up with him, or something to this nature. But I can't tell you, but every so often he does come back to me, and I see him in different situations, and it's like that with just about everybody. Somebody will pass away, and then right away I'll start seeing them. So
When you first started having these experiences, were you afraid?
um, I wouldn't say afraid. No, I mean, there's always a fear factor in everything, and if people tell you they're not afraid, there's something wrong. I mean, there's always a fear factor in anything that you're going to do. I mean, but you do overcome them. I mean, I took psychic awareness classes where the gentleman taught you not to fear things in life, to try and understand them better. I think if people understand certain things and certain situations better, you're not quite as afraid of what you're going to experience. Now, that might not always be the case if you're depending on what kind of entity you're going to run into. There are certain entities out there that can be very nasty, okay? Whether or not they were killers in regular lives, or they were, whether we're talking about, and then, there's certain types of ghost entities that are out there. I mean, you have your ghost. A ghost is probably nothing more than a human, a person that, something that held a form like a human being. All right. But then of course, you've got poltergeist, and a poltergeist means a noisy spirit in German. Okay. It means noisy spirit. And there are different types of poltergeist too. I mean, a lot of people connect the poltergeist to a young child going through puberty and things of this nature, where as their energy escapes them and then runs rapid throughout the house and causes problems. This is a type of energy that particularly will die down after a while. Energy, of course, does not dissipate. It cannot be destroyed. It can change form. It can move on, but I don't think you could ever really get rid of it. And then, of course, you have your other types of ones that are demonic. Demonic entities are something of a whole nother nature. And I couldn't see that anybody wouldn't be scared of something like that. I particularly have never ran into a demonic entity. At least I don't think I have. And I would imagine that it would be quite scary to run into a room with something like that. And everybody says they're not. Well, facing something like that would probably be a very frightening experience. But particularly, I am not particularly scared. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life and a lot of great professions, and I never really thought about it before, not being scared like that.
What was your first encounter with a ghost, if you remember?
Well, like I said, my very first encounter was, of course, in my grandmother's house. From there on in, I mean,
That was the first one? Nothing earlier than that then?
No, I wouldn't say earlier than that. I was probably about 5 or 6 at that particular time. So, I mean, I wouldn't have, if they did, I wouldn't have remembered it. And my parents didn't particularly mention it at that particular time. So, no, I would say that was my very first experience running into a ghost. Yes.
So you were 5 or 6 at that time. In your study of the paranormal, are children at that age more prone to being visited by ghosts? Because look at that Poltergeist movie. Drew Barrymore, she was like about 5 or 6 when that entity wanted to take her. So have you had any experience with that kind of activity? Any insight into that kind of activity with the 5 to 6 year olds and their propensity to encounter the paranormal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about something like that, children do not. I'm looking for a particular word. They don't overemphasize on things. They don't think about certain things. They don't say, "Oh, it could be this or it could be that." I mean, a lot of times when children are saying, well, telling their parents, "Well, I have a friend," sort of like in Poltergeist or the Amityville Horror, for instance, and people say, "Well, I have this friend, and it comes to me." You see, they don't differentiate that from an actual unbelievable friend. Like, children make up friends when especially parents who have only like one child, maybe to play with and stuff like that. But are they actually playing with a make-believe person, or is that an actual person that is coming to them? Yes, I do believe children are more psychically aware. They don't overemphasize on things like us. The older we get, the more we think of things. We have blockages as we get older, and we emphasize things a little bit differently than children do. So yeah, they will see things much more clear than most adults will think. And if I ran into that, I've ran into it in a lot of different cases, and people have asked me, about cases that have been out there. Now, of course, the Drew Barrymore case, I mean, where she was in Poltergeist and things of that nature, and you're looking at again, a poltergeist. And they kind of took it in the movies to where, yeah, the house is buried over Indian burial ground, and then they used the child because in an older case, like back in the early 1800s, there was a child. It was called the Bell Witch case, and this child was having experiences, and there was experiences in the house which, back in those days, they didn't quite understand what was going on. There wasn't ghost hunters or paranormal investigators or science to explain these things to people. So these things were very frightening to them. So when they took the child and they moved it, like maybe to a relative's house or a friend's house, and people can look up the Bell Witch case and understand it a little bit better. But the fact is that this entity followed the child wherever it went, which was quite unusual. Now, we're not talking about a haunting now. Now we're talking about something that attached itself to the aura of the child, or it was the child's energy. Everybody has energy. Now, when they say poltergeist, in a German word, like I said before, it means noisy spirit. There have been cases where the energy, like a battery, we are like batteries, and we store energy. You can call it your soul, you can call it whatever you like. Okay, there's a lot of different religions, Indian lores, everybody calls it different things. But this energy can leave the body, and I wouldn't say exactly leave the body, but there's like an umbilical cord attached to this energy, and it can make things a little hectic in the house. And whether or not that is particularly an entity or not is another question. So they kind of took that, used the young child, and of course, for the movies, you got to make it more exciting so the viewers are excited and they see the movie and things of this nature. Cases like this are rare. I've had a few of them. They are rare, and they don't always happen like the movies portray them either. So,
what was the most frightening experience, paranormal experience that you had?
well, I've had several of them. I've been in several homes, and again, frightening. I would say more excited than frightened. I would say in Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, which Bachelor's Grove Cemetery happens to be located out in Midlothian, and it's a cemetery that's very well known out there. You mentioned Bachelor's Grove, everybody's going to say, "Oh, I know Bachelor's Grove, been out there, but I've never seen anything." People don't open themselves they don't open themselves up to the experiences. You have to go out there and you've got to experience things. You got to be patient. I mean, if you're going out there to think, you're going to walk into it like you're going to walk into one of these haunted houses during the month of October, and things are going to start flying out at you, you're wrong. This doesn't happen like that at all. I mean, although it could, I'm very doubtful that something like that would occur quite that fast. I mean, I took my stepdaughter out there while we were writing the book to have her experience some of the things, because we were writing the book. We do have a chapter devoted to Bachelor's Grove, where people have experienced things out there, but it can be frightening at nighttime, especially if you're by yourself, because it's a quarter of a mile back into the woods. It's right off what's called the Midlothian Turnpike, and it wasn't put there by accident. It was done by purpose. They had built the Midlothian Turnpike. They go through this particular some of the cemetery, which you can still see kind of the street there, and then they kind of curved it around it and made it go past the woods. So now it's kind of left back into the woods, which is a great haven for ghost hunters. I mean, I consider it one of the most haunted cemeteries in the world. And if you go out there at a particular day, and I've had people come back, "Oh, I haven't seen anything," because you got to open yourself up to it. Go out there, relax, stay out there for a few hours, and particularly you might start seeing things. You could see anything out there, from lights to apparitions to they've had haunted cars that have come in and out of there and disappeared. They've had houses disappearing. Somebody's even seen some sort of creature come out of the creek. I mean, there have been many, many experiences out there. And I would say out there, I've experienced quite a few things. I've seen lights swerving around. And one particular time, a friend and I were going out to Bachelor's Grove to spend the night, per se, but you're really not allowed to spend the night there. I'll be honest with you, the Forest Preserve Police frown on anybody being out there at nighttime. It's not locked up. There is a gate there. You can't drive through there. You have to park, and then, of course, you have to walk back. And you're talking about walking back a quarter of a mile to the woods. So, I mean, I particularly did not get frightened at night, but my partner did. And we we were there for several hours before things started to happen. We started to see these streaking lights throughout the cemetery, red, yellow, blue. And then when we were looking in one direction, we saw what looked like a man. He was glowing, and he had a hat on. I would say like a 50s style type men's hat, and he was just standing there glowing. He was kind of yellowish. I did capture something on film that particular night. Not a full figure, but I caught something yellowish type on the film, a globe. And before I could do anything, I told him, his name was Rudy. I said, Rudy, did you see that? And before I knew it, I turned around and he had already gathered up half the equipment and he was running down the road. So he was hightailing it out of there. I said, keep going. I said, I got the keys. So he wasn't going too far. Okay. But again, frightening? No. Excitement? Yes. I think that when you enter this field, you're hoping for more. Each and every time, you experience something, hoping that you will see something. In my particular case, getting into ghost hunting and paranormal investigations, I always wanted to make sure that not only, I was there for the experience, was to actually help people with their experiences to make sure that they were aware of what was going on. If they could live with them, fine. If they couldn't, then I would have a whole nother team come in and we would do a house cleansing to see if we could get rid of these entities and these people could, settle down in their homes.
Do you have any theory about why Bachelor's Grove is so haunted? Is it because they built the highway there and it went through the grove and then up maybe disturb some of the graves, or is it something else?
Oh my goodness, yes. Bachelor's Grove dates back to the early 1800s. I mean, a settlement of German immigrants settled out there, and at that particular time, they were bachelors. So that's where Bachelor's Grove, of course, gets its name, Bachelor's Grove. And of course, they settled in with families and things of that nature after that. But I mean, Bachelor's Grove is so far back. There are people who have gone out there. You need to go out there. It's quite disturbing. I mean, people have tried to, I don't know if the Forest Preserve does much out there. I know other people have had other things out there where they've cleaned it up. I mean, you would go out there, you would find garbage, you would find tombstones spray painted, pushed over. I mean, a lot of them were some of them were taken or maybe thrown into the nearby pond. These type of things, of course, are going to disturb. If there is an entity attached to that particular area, that would, of course, cause some sort of disturbance. There were, back in that particular time, from what I understand, there were bodies dumped there by the mob. It was a very desolate area, so I could see that happening, actually. I also know that there were occultists out there performing rituals and things of that nature. I mean, on one particular tour, which on my tours, we used to stop and go back into the grove. Of course, again, I said it is not legal to do so, but we did it anyways. I wanted my people to experience more than what they were going to do on a regular bus tour. So we went back there and we did see some cats hanging from the trees and stuff of that nature. I don't know whether they were occultists that were out there at that particular time. It was something that was known for that. I hadn't seen it up until that point. That's very disturbing, as I am an animal lover, and don't like to see anything like that happen to animals. These are some very disturbed people doing things like this, and that, of course, would cause problems out there as well. Because then again, you're bringing in other things, other things that are not, let's say, of the earth, unhuman entities. So this, of course, causes disturbances as well.
What do you mean? Do you mean like those animals that were sacrificed, they have energy that is contributing to the
No,
unrest as well?
no, I wouldn't say that particularly. I would say that whatever was using those animals in the rituals was calling in other things, whether or not they were trying to contact a demonic entity for their own purposes or something of that nature, would cause disturbances in that area as well. Now, you also have to understand, of course, people did die, particularly how they died is another nature too. Did they die very fast? Did they die in a car accident? Did they, were they still very young? Did they want life more, after that? And, these things could also cause disturbances and keep the entities around in that area too. And of course, back in the early 1800s and stuff, there was influenzas and things of that nature, more so than now. But, and people died off then too. So, and they, in the grove itself, it seems like it's not particularly only inside the cemetery, because we did experience something coming down the road with us. We heard one night as we were approaching the front of it, but it seemed to have stopped. So there is a stopping point for the entity to actually, they cannot leave the grove area. So,
but how far is that from the entrance?
I would say a quarter of a mile back in, I would say about halfway. It seems like there's a stopping wall, because we heard this thing following us, or something following us, and then it stopped. It seems like it had a stopping point, almost like there was a brick wall there and they were running into it. I'm using that as a metaphor. I'm trying to tell you guys that there was something there that stopped them.
Might it be that in order for that entity to keep its energy, it can't stray that far from the origin of that energy? If it went beyond that point, it would be too weak to continue in that following you existence.
Well, exactly, and that's a very good assumption there. Yes, that is possible too. The cemetery itself, where these entities are getting their energy, because it is a desolate area, unless, of course, it's a focal point. Like, for instance, I do know for a fact that, Chicago is known for a lot of Indian trails, Indian burial grounds. And I know that area had a particular Indian tribe out there at that particular time. And that is also paved over Indian burial trails, burial grounds. So, I mean, this, of course, could attribute to the fact that there is a lot of energy out there. Chicago itself has been called Psychic City Chicago. So, from what I understand, somewhere people have said that if you look from the sky, you can see a triangle. Now, triangles are known for capturing energy. Okay. So, whether or not that's true or not, it could be the fact that, certain areas are power points, and there's more energy there than normally in any other spot. Otherwise, most houses would always be haunted. But why? There's always a reason why a particular area is more haunted than others, and most of the time, something happened there, or there is some sort of doorway to the next world, or there's something that goes on there, and you have to do, of course, when you do your research, you will probably find out that it was paved over Indian burial ground, or something of that nature.
Do you research whether or not a haunting site is on a ley line? when you do your initial research?
Yeah, it's very possible that they are. Um, I mean, doing research on particular grounds and things of this nature, even houses, sometimes you run into a lot of stopping points. You got to eat, but the more you dig, the more you're going to find. Yeah, are they? Yes, I had a particular house that we didn't know what was going on there, but we did see. We saw graves, for instance, one time above the ground, and we didn't know they were graves; they were mounds. We asked the people. We said, "What are these? What are these mounds over here to the side here?" They were. I don't know how they weren't particularly knowing what they were, but we found out that they were a particular group called the Mound People, where they used to put the people above the ground and build a mound over them. So, I mean, things of this nature can cause what you call ley lines of energy. Yes, yes, I do. I do find that certain areas are just like the Bermuda Triangle or other particular areas that have a exuberant amount of energy. A lot of people will say, well, what is this energy? Well, it's just like a battery. That's what it is. I mean, we are made up of humans themselves are made up of water and things of this nature, which attract energy. I mean, you look at the seas, how rough they are. The shapes of the moon can cause tidal waves and things of this. So, I mean, the Earth's energy forces are moved in a lot of different ways. So, in a lot of these particular areas, for some reason, build up this amount of energy.
Tell us about house cleansings.
Okay, well, when I first started, I mean, not every ghost hunter or paranormal investigator will do a house cleansing. I mean, I have heard of others that have done them. But I learned from a minister out in Indiana. It was a very long time ago, but they can be done in different ways. I mean, every religion has their house cleansings or their exorcisms, whether or not it be, a Jewish ceremony or a Catholic ceremony or an Indian ritual. I mean, they're all different. Um, Now, I particularly learned from this minister on how to do house cleansings. I also kind of came up with a couple of things myself on using ultrasonic waves to push the energy out of the house as well, sort of like an advanced Ghostbusters type thing. But what I do is I'll go in there. Energy seems to build up in corners of the homes. Okay, so what you want to do, and I'm gonna, and I can particularly say, like, if you feel like you have energy out there in your house, you could put salt in your corner, for instance. I mean, salt has always been something very spiritual, whether it be from the sea. I mean, King Solomon himself used to throw demons into the sea to hold them. Okay, sea salt is very powerful. So if you can get a hold of some sea salt, you may be able to throw that into the corners of the house, and that may be able to calm the energy down itself. There are other ways of doing it through rituals. Like I said, every particular religion has their own rituals, but I will go in there. For one instance, we saw that when I brought a team into this one house, and I say team, I brought in other people who were experienced in different fields, and we decided that an Indian ritual and a gift was to be made to these entities to not to actually get rid of them, but so that the people that were living there could live there in peace and that they weren't trying to push them out anymore. So there was a gift of corn. So we kind of, and there was a little bit more than that, which I'm not going to go into. It was a little bit more ritual than that, but that was like a peace offering, and there are certain ways of doing things.
Did it work?
And did it work? It worked. I guess it worked temporarily. We told them not to go out there and touch what we had done, but they're human. Part of them got to them where they had to go see what we did, and they kind of dug it up and they kind of killed the ritual a little bit. but from what I understand, they actually sold the house and had to move out. So, you know, wherever you're at and whatever you do, whoever you particularly pull into to do this, you know, you have to follow their orders. Otherwise, you know, you may cause either a bigger disturbance, or it's just going to continue. And in some cases, you can't cleanse houses. I mean, some are just are beyond cleansing, and that's particularly because of the ground itself. You
Could
may
you give
never
us
be
an
able.
example or two?
Well, I mean, you're talking about like, for instance, let me explain to you a house that was haunted, and a lot of people, there was a lot of movies made about the Amityville horror. For instance, let's say this particular house. This is a little bit different. I'm going to explain it a little bit different here. I mean, this particular house, of course, was haunted, and I don't know if it was per se haunted or it was demonic. They had pulled in some other investigators in on this particular case, and my theory on the Amityville horror was that there were children in the house. So this could have been, of course, a poltergeist case. Whereas the energy is either going to die down or eventually, you know, just leave. Now, it was said that the house was over Indian burial ground. But other people who have moved into that particular house said they never experienced anything again after the Lutzes left. But the only theory that I could come up with is that it was a poltergeist, and the energy eventually diminished to the point where or it was that one of the children were connected to it, like they said in the movie. And after they left, the energy either went with them or it diminished again. So that's one case of where the house was being haunted by something and it diminished and went away. Other cases, of course, where the house will never go away. I mean, there's one particular house, and I'm not sure, I forgot where it's at, but they actually rent it out to ghost hunters and investigators to come out there and actually stay there and experience things. And I do believe that certain places that you will never push these entities out. They're there for life. Either you're either going to live with them or you're not. I mean, it's just that way.
Do you know anything about John Wayne Gacy's house?
Oh, absolutely. John Wayne Gacy's house was a spot on my tour, and this is back then when John Wayne Gacy was, of course, around, and it just happened. It happened while I was doing my tours on that particular side of the city at that particular time, and we used to go there. Now, John Wayne Gacy's house, naturally, you're talking, I can't remember what the body count was, but, you know, you're talking, 30 bodies on a particular land. And of course, people who were tragically tortured and killed, and then, of course, put underneath the house. I mean, that is so much bad energy. I can't see how it was not haunted. But we had gone out there a few times, and we were on the bus one particular time, and we didn't get out. The neighbors were very hostile, and this was when the house was just torn down as well. So there was just the land piece there. I've thought, you know, they had built a newer house on that particular land. Now, I haven't heard anything about anything since then, but I know that at that particular time, people had said they had seen, you know, orbs of light, things of that nature. What we experienced on the tour was quite interesting. I had people who had brought cameras with them, and of course, they, you know, hoping that they're going to catch entities on their film and stuff of that nature, but they were shooting them from the window. And from what from what everybody was telling me, that all their cameras had jammed up that particular night, and none of them were shooting. And then all of the cameras after that worked. So that was on one of my tours. Whether or not something of that nature stopped them, the cameras from working, was quite interesting. Of course, you know, I was out there with a crew, for a news crew one time, and this is not really a ghost story, but the neighbors came out and they had guns and things, and they shoot us off the land. But that was scary. Let me tell you that.
What about
But
the news crews cameras? Were they working?
uh, they were working on that particular night. I don't know if we ever. The funny part is, I don't know if that was ever shown or if they cut that segment out. I think it might have been cut out because of, of the hostility of the neighbor. But you know, it's interesting. I'll be honest with you. I don't think we ever used that. I don't know whatever happened to that footage. Because we were walking around the land and it was empty. There were even bricks still there from the house being torn down at that particular time. I mean, we were in the area and we were shooting other haunted places in the area, near the Des Plaines River and things of that nature. So, but I can tell you that that energy built up there would be very hostile. That is something that if that particular ground isn't haunted to this day, I would be very surprised.
After the house was built, the new house was built, have you visited it?
I have not. I have to be honest with you, I have not visited it. I mean, I got a few pictures of the house. I never really captured much on film from that particular area. But you know, excluding from the one time we had the experience on the bus was the one time that I did know. I used to call it my mystery spot, so I wasn't telling people where I was taking them. So you know, I kind of built it up to the to the excitement, and you know, told everybody we were here at that particular time where we were at. But you know, things have to be fun for the people as well. But no, I haven't experienced anything else out there at the time, and I'm pretty sure that the people in the neighborhood want everything to die down since then. You know, but then, and again, they always still bring up John Wayne Gacy, and you know, they've had several movies and things of that nature. But you know, it was a tragic thing for the neighborhood.
It seemed
So
as
I mean,
if
I can understand where they would want it to go away.
it seemed as if I did hear someone after the new house was built. They also tried to film, and there was problems filming too, like using the camera. And also, it seems as if the house is sold again and again. Nobody lives there for long.
That could be very much true. Yes. I don't know. I haven't been out to the site in quite a while. That's interesting though. Um, I didn't since I haven't taken the tours or anybody back to that area, but that could be very much true. Yes. Houses can be resold and resold and resold, and most haunted houses are. I mean, if you're talking haunting, you know, that particular one would be very tragic. The people died in a tragic type of way, and yes, the energy there could even draw in other bad energy. So it also could be why, you know, things happened at this particular spot. I don't know, but I just experienced what I experienced there at that particular time. So
Nobody has done research about that location to see if there were any other incidents or tragedies before Gacy.
you know, that's interesting. No, I didn't. I didn't actually do that. No, I didn't look into the thing to the plot of land to see what was particularly there before. But you know, again, I'll be honest with you, the Des Plaines area and Des Plaines River area and stuff. I mean, there's Robinson Woods out there, which has Indian lore to it and things of that nature. So there is a lot of, like I said before, in Chicago, a lot of burial grounds and paved over Indian trails and things of that nature, and especially in the Des Plaines area. So, I mean, that could be, it could be, I don't know. But of course, you know, this was a very sick man, and that did these things, and whether or not something tragically happened there before it had any connection to it, I couldn't tell you, but I don't know. I just feel for the people that this happened to, and the land itself and the neighborhood. It's going to have a
For
stigma for the rest of its life. So
accident victims, let's say the accident happened in one spot and the victim maybe passed away in a hospital somewhere else. Where does the haunting usually take place? Where the person passed or where the accident happened?
that's very interesting. Yes, it usually particularly will happen where the accident occurred. I mean, it could be, I can't say that it wouldn't happen. It could be where, they passed away in the hospital. Most of the time, you'll hear where the accident particularly happened. You got to understand something. When people die, let's say in a car accident, for instance, they die very fast. Okay. None of us are prepared for death. And I don't know how, you can prepare yourself for that. I guess you can, maybe if you have, a disease or cancer and things of this nature, you have time to go through the thought process of death and things of this nature and how you're going to handle it. But, if you're happy, lucky, go lucky down the street, and all of a sudden, you get whacked out by a semi truck or something, I mean, that's something you're not expecting. Okay. And the soul itself is not ready to die. And I'm going to give you a particular experience in another movie. There was a movie called Audrey Rose, for instance, and this was a true case of reincarnation. Audrey Rose, real fast, died in a car accident, and supposedly her soul reincarnated so fast she hadn't realized that she had died. So when it reincarnated into another little girl, okay, which was Audrey, she didn't know she didn't know that she had passed. She was having nightmares of her passing away in a car accident, and I guess the car accident was so tragic. She had died in a fire in the car, and that at one time she had put her hands on the windows, and her handprints were burnt into the windows and things of this nature, like she was trying to get out of a car, things of this nature. So when you look at that, this is exactly what you're talking about. She's having an experience here of a reincarnation here, but yet the site where she's at, could that be haunted as well? It could be. A lot of people do haunt the sites where they died at. I mean, this is where they were known at. But if they were moved to the hospital, I would say the chances of them maybe dying, if they died on the site, yes, I would say that's where they were going to haunt. If they died in a hospital, it's very possible they're gonna die in that. They're gonna haunt that particular spot. Again, ghosts have boundaries, from what I can understand, and whether it's going to go from the hospital back to that site, I doubt it.
For seances, you say that you do seances too, but what you've just told us, it seems as if most ghosts are residual energy. So if you do a seance and you do reach an entity, how much could you, what are the subjects that you could talk about? Is the spirit knowledgeable of anything else besides whatever caused the spirit to die or whatever happened to that spirit while it was alive?
Well, here's the thing. I don't particularly do seances for entertainment purposes. Okay. I mean, we tried to call back Houdini one time and things of this nature. And I shouldn't say for entertainment purposes, because we've done a seance. Like one time we had this big Halloween ball, and we tried to call back Houdini, which we had some great experience with that. But then again, most of the time when I did seances, they were in the homes where people either died or we were trying to contact the entities that were there. And the reason we were doing that was to get knowledge of what was going on. What is, whether or not they give us a name, they can communicate with us in some other way, you know. We gotta get answers sometimes. So, excuse me. Sometimes seances are a good thing to do that with. They don't always work. You gotta understand seances don't always work. And when you say a seance, you know, you see these things on TV where things are flying around and people are experiencing all these things. It doesn't always happen like that. You could get something, you could not. And I can't particularly say that, you know, that's going to happen either. Sometimes I used to set up infrared cameras all over the place and things like this. And we try to communicate to see if maybe, you know, we can move them on or tell them that they're passed away and they can move on, right, out of the house. Sometimes they are stuck there. Sometimes they don't want to go into the light or move on, you know. So this is why we're there doing that. And I wouldn't particularly say that, you know, I contact Aunt Martha. I go into houses and contact Aunt Martha, who didn't die there, and we're just trying. I don't do that type of seance. It's not that type of nature. We most of the time when I, you know, either do it myself or I bring a crew in of other people, we're there to do that just to find out any information we can about why they're there and if they do answer us. A lot of times we do. We did one seance in one house where this particular gentleman was doing some archaeology out in New Mexico, and he brought back a whole bunch of objects, and the objects themselves were haunted. They were harboring energy. I even got pictures of them. I used to use a lot of infrared film, which can capture energy on it, and we have infrared cameras to this now. Now technology's gotten even better, and we have infrared cameras. Where back then I was using just plain old infrared film. Nowadays you have cameras. The technology has gotten so much better for ghost hunting. It's unbelievable. Since my day, my younger days in this, and so like I said, that a lot of times, you know, you capture these things, you do and you don't.
When people talk with spirits, sometimes they ask questions, and when they ask questions about the future, do the entities they answer correctly? And of course, that is dangerous. So, do you have any insight on that?
Well, I think anything that's going to give you answers into the future. Do I think that they're going to give you the lotto winning numbers? I mean, it's like, and I sometimes I laugh. My wife always goes, "Well, you know, my father died. I mean, maybe he can give me my lotto winning numbers," and I doubt it. You know, I doubt if they can see, if they have any particular. I doubt that they have any more powers than they had in another life, and that's another thing. You know, you see things that move in haunted houses and things of this nature, but they're just doing things that they did in their life. There might have been somebody that's cleaning the room and they're moving that object over. It's not as though there's a demon in the room and he's throwing stuff all over the room and things. Can that happen? Yes, that of course can happen. Rare, but it can happen. But that's just to frighten. But I think your normal common haunting, where, you know, this ghost might have died back in the 1860s or something like that, or it's Aunt Martha in the house and she passed away, you know, and she doesn't realize she passed away. So she's just doing what she did in a normal life. You know, she's moving her objects around. They may want to try and get in touch with you, or this is the only way they tell you that they're there, you know, or they're trying to communicate with you to let you know why they're there. Maybe they buried something in the house. Maybe they want you to find something. Maybe they need your help to move on, you know, things like this.
You tried to call Houdini. Were you successful?
I think we were. Yes, I got a picture, and this is. I was working with a psychic back then. His first name was Alphonse, and very good psychic. And he was also very much into Houdini and escapes and things of this nature. And we were working together. We had I used to throw an annual Halloween ball for fun, entertainment purposes only. And that's what this particular seance was for. we of course did want to see if we could, we could contact Houdini himself. Everybody's always tried to contact him, but I can tell you for a fact that we had some very weird experiences that night. We did it at a very popular club downtown at that particular time, and a very selective amount of people around the table. And Alphonse, I was on one side of the table with a Polaroid camera. Now, I used a Polaroid camera a lot, and I still do to this day. Actually, I have an advanced Polaroid camera they just made. People say Polaroid cameras not around anymore, but they are. They have new Polaroid cameras, but I used to like them because you would get an instant photo out of them. So you weren't waiting for the film to go away and come back. So that particular night, I had a Polaroid camera, and I had people, instead of holding my hands, they were holding my biceps. Alphonse was on the other side, and he was calling Houdini here. Now, he held up what was a crystal in the air, and I can tell you that when he called him, this crystal bursted at the table into 1,000 pieces. Not only that, after we had done the seance and we examined the photos, I got a particular photo out of the camera, and it was weird because it looked as though it came out of the camera backwards, and I was trying to distinguish what this was. I'm going, I could see some sort of a shadow on it, but I can't. And then what I did is I flipped it upside down, and there you could see the face of Houdini. And that was strange because I was asked by several news people that were there who loaded the camera. I loaded the film myself. Polaroid film is very hard to of course, fool with, because you load it in and that's it. It's encased. So there's no way to do any type of trickery. I mean, I'm sure somebody could figure something out in this day and age, but I never did. I loaded the camera myself. I took the picture myself. I can tell you that particular picture came out backwards. And when it didn't come out of the camera, but it came out the normal way. But what it was is whatever happened that night, the Houdini photo, it's sort of like, I didn't see it until I turned it around. So it kind of, and I'm going to use, for lack of less of a word here, impregnated itself on the film upside down. And I still have that picture to this day. So yes, I would say we were very successful on contacting the spirit of Houdini. Now, this brings up another.
How old did he seem?
I'm sorry?
How old did he seem?
He didn't seem old at all. You mean, did he turn older in the photo than?
Yeah, what age did he seem to be in the photo?
He seemed to be the same age that he was when he passed away. And of course that was very young. But was he an older man? No. He looked just like Houdini himself. Just like you would see him in a movie, or you would see pictures of him in a book about Houdini. He looked just like him. Which brings us back to the fact, I know a lot of people say, do you get older? Do you get younger in the spirit world? I don't know. I really can't tell you that. But I can tell you that he looked just like Houdini. Like you would see, if you looked up a book, you saw him, that's what he looked like. And it was him, for sure. And how anybody could have faked that, I couldn't tell you. But I can tell you that I was in charge of the film and the camera, and it didn't happen. I didn't do anything. So.
If our listeners want to learn more about you, Norman Basile, and your work, where should they go?
I have a website. It's called the devilsknockingbook.com. You can view my book. You can view where you can get a hold of me. My phone number is on there as well. Can I give out my phone number?
Yes. Okay,
my phone number is 708-622-8530. If you want to get a hold of me, just talk about ghosts, or you want to figure out what kind of events they have, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, and I'm on all the social media sites. Like I said, you can go to my website, thedevilsknockingbook.com. You could call me if you want to go on a tour, or if you got a haunted house you need for me to investigate, or if you want to buy a copy of the book.
And how do you spell your last name, Norman?
It's Basile, Basile.
Thank you so much, Norman Basile, for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And much luck on your future work.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It was nice talking with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.